PlayStation 5 came out last November, and here we are nearly 9 months later. 9 months and people still can't buy this thing. It's been nearly impossible to find, and there's still a shortage going on, which means everybody that wants one can't get one. It really sucks, and hopefully Sony can get these into more people's hands sometime soon. I managed to get one at launch, and there's been a lot of good, but it hasn't been all perfect. Let's dive in. This console is huge. It's actually bigger than my PC. Yeah, that big. A lot of people were torn on the design when it was announced, but I have to admit, it never really bothered me from the start. It actually comes with a stand that attaches, but you don't have to use it. The console can be seated vertically or horizontally. I've kept mine vertical because it takes up less space. I replaced the removable white side plates with some black ones from D-Brand, and it looks much better in my opinion. There's a whole bunch of different ones you can buy online too. I don't like the glossy interior strip because glossy on any tech is bad in my opinion. It's just asking for scratches. This also has the status lights when you turn it on like the PS4 and in standby. The front has USB Type-C and Type-A ports along with the power and disc eject buttons. On the back you get 2 more USB-A ports, an HDMI 2.1 port, an Ethernet jack, and the AC power plug port. There's no optical audio port, but most people probably don't use those anyways, so it's not too much of a loss. The controller sort of stole the show, and it's what most people have talked about as being next gen when they talk about the PlayStation 5. When utilized to its full potential, it's incredible. The bundled minigame Astro's Playroom is the perfect game to show off what the controller can do, and it was the genius of Sony to include this. Returnal is another recent game that uses the controller to enhance it, and it wouldn't be nearly as enjoyable without it. Enhanced haptic feedback feels unlike any controller you've ever used. The vibrations just feel so detailed. You can feel the individual raindrops in Returnal and the footsteps on different material from sand to ice in Astro's Playroom. The adaptive triggers on the back are also great with different available tension levels. It's also something I've never seen on a controller before. I'm so happy that Sony kept the speaker on the controller, and I wish more games would utilize it. It adds another level of immersion you don't get with other controllers. The controller has a built-in microphone, so you can talk to teammates in multiplayer games if you don't have a dedicated headset. It's not great, but it works in a pinch. The controller is a lot bigger and thicker than the DualSense 4, but it feels a little better to hold. It also still has the touchpad and the light bar from the DualSense 4. Oh, and it finally charges via USB-C. I haven't played all of the PS5 games released, but I've played most of them, and this thing is powerful in what I've seen. It's rocking an 8-core CPU and a custom SSD for storage that makes for super fast loading times. Most loading screens are a quick fade to black screen, and then you're in the game. With all of this extra power, a lot of games are now offering PC-like graphic options with you being able to select between modes with 60 frames per second, or ray tracing, or a combination of the two in 4K. I'm not blown away by ray tracing, but when you combine that with increased frame rates and super fast load times, it really does feel kind of next gen. You'll also get some improvement on backwards compatible PS4 games. Games that had PS4 Pro enhancements can be used here, and end up with better loading times, higher frames per second, and graphical enhancements. This isn't every game, and some will still require the developer to issue a patch, but a lot of games I played had some form of improvement. And I have to say, playing God of War at 60 frames per second is amazing. Speaking of backwards compatibility, unlike the mess that was the transition from PS3 to PS4, Sony says the PS5 can play nearly all PS4 games. I've tested out all of my PS4 games, and yeah, they work just fine. Where you put these games could be an issue. The custom SSD that Sony included is not big enough. It's 825 gigabytes with only 667 of usable space. This fills up really fast. Sony added support for expandable storage and it helps, but you can't play PS5 games from it. You can only store them there to transfer later to your main console. What you can do is store PS4 games there, and you can launch and play them directly from the expandable storage, freeing up the main console storage for your PS5 games. The system has an extra M.2 slot for expandable storage, but they still haven't activated it yet. Come on Sony, it's been 9 months. Also note you can use a DualShock 4 with the system, but they only work with PS4 games, so you can't play any new games with it. What's a console without games? Sony really pulled ahead of Microsoft last gen because of their exclusive games. This generation is off to a great start as well. You had launch titles like Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, and the Demon's Souls remake. Now 2 of those are available on PS4, but since then we've gotten a new Ratchet & Clank and the excellent and frustrating Returnal. I also can't wait for the new God of War and Horizon games coming next year. That's also not counting other upgrades like the Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut and the Death Stranding Director's Cut. I don't use my PS5 for streaming apps, but a lot of people probably do, so I'll touch on them really quickly. It's got Netflix, YouTube, Disney+, Prime Video, Apple TV+, and pretty much any one you would want. They all work fine and you won't have any issues using this as your streaming center. I also don't use the 3D audio that comes with the system that's supposed to work with most headphones. I didn't really notice much of a difference on my headset, but it may be better on others, so you may get more out of it than I did. Overall, I've been really happy with the PS5. With the success they had last gen, they could have really mailed it in, but this is a solid console. Got a weird design and small storage, but the improvements in graphics, load times, and the new controller really do feel next gen. $499 isn't cheap, and that's if you can even find it at retail, but I think it's a good price point for what's on offer here. The best thing is that it will get better over time. More exclusives will launch, and developers will really be able to fine-tune this and get the most performance out of it as we go forward. Let me know if you've been able to pick one up or if you're still trying. And don't forget, don't give in to the scalpers. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you have a great day.